Greetings and welcome back to yet another episode of the Daily Run, and today we are playing as Eden. And you can see that the dice roll here wasn't very good at all. We ended up with only 2 spirit hearts, which means that because we don't have a way to regenerate hearts reliably, means that this might be the only health that we have for the next 3 floors, so we really need to play vigilant. Thankfully, because we do have Robot Baby, which kinda helps us crowd control enemies a little, we have some resemblance to kind of defending ourselves against enemies with, well, rooms with a lot of enemies. But on the contrary, you can see that our damage is really bad. Our tear rate is super slow and our damage is so bad that it takes 2 hits to kill a black fly and 4 hits to kill the big fly. That is not something you want to see in any run, especially a daily run. But then again, you know, everybody is playing on the same kind of level, so that's how things go. You can see me not trying to shoot too many fires here because we are so not strong, our DPS is so low, that we can expect, we can't really afford to take our time to kill every single thing in the rooms, because that means that we won't be able to catch any important objective like boss rush or hush. And I don't think trading that away, possibility of catching hush or mom or boss rush, is worth a few pennies that we might get by shooting the fires. So that's kind of my reasoning why I didn't go for, you know, why I didn't kill every single fire and every poop like I usually do in my daily runs. Either way, we are fighting the Haunt, and you can see that it is a practice run, and that is not something that happened by accident. In my first run, on my actual daily run, I ended up fighting the Haunt with only half a heart remaining, and as you might know, fighting the Haunt is really more of a patience game than anything else. It's especially with the strategy I'm using, where I bait out his attacks and then I go in for 3 or 4 hits. What can end up happening if you're a bit greedy or if you're in a hurry or something like that? You can actually you go into, you know, after an attack, and instead of 3 or 4 hits, you're like, okay, maybe I can sneak in an extra hit or 2. And in that little time window, Haunt gets angry, I guess, and then, you know, he shoots when you're least expecting him, and that's how he got me in my actual run, and that's how I died. I then stopped, you know, kind of refreshed a little, came back, and I managed to beat him without too big of an issue. So, without actually getting hit. So, you know, like I said, it's not really about being a better player. I think it's more about not expecting for a game to throw this at you, like this big obstacle that you usually don't encounter, especially early on. But yeah, we managed to get through it and power through it with the best of our abilities, and now we're on our merry way on our 2nd floor. And because we do have that burnt penny, we're kind of on the lookout for pennies to find, you know, to give us a chance to find bombs, and then we can use those bombs in turn to maybe find more coins or, you know, tinted rocks or secret rooms, which will kind of help propel our run just a bit further and hopefully give us the edge we need to succeed, even though this run is not looking strong at all here. Because there are only 2 possibilities of 2nd secret rooms, I do manage to find it, and it contains some good pills, and one of the best, well, the best pill it contains is the health up pill, and I'm super glad for that, because it just makes me feel a bit safer to know that that I have this red heart buffer. And if I do manage to get through this fight alive, that means that we're guaranteed a devil deal. And not only are we guaranteed a devil deal, if there's an actual item, and by having a red heart, that means that we can actually take it. If you only had 3 spirit hearts and the devil deal would then of course be in spirit hearts, it means that we wouldn't be able to take it. But with just that buffer of a red heart, any devil deal that comes will also it just means that we'll trade 1 heart away instead of 3, of course, and that's just something that makes a person feel a little bit better about the run. Thankfully, we do get a really good devil deal, and because we did manage to pick up those few extra hearts, we can actually afford to pick everything up. And I think I picked them in the optimal order, at least in the sense of Abaddon is definitely last, because Abaddon does take your red hearts away, so it's a good idea to waste them all, well, I guess trade them all first, and then at the end pick up the Abaddon. And because we did have flight and extra health, I did dare to go into our curse room, which contained an Answers rune. And the Answers rune, of course, gives you vision of the whole map, and gives you not only the locations of the rooms, but things like that also gives you locations of every secret room and secret rooms. But what I'll mainly use it for, not only as a way to find the secret rooms, but as a way to kind of show me the whole map, so I can optimize my the order in which I visit my rooms. So that means that, you know, I'll pop it on the floor like Mom, or the Necropolis 2, or the Depths 2. No, the Depths 2. But the alternative to Necropolis, I'm not sure what exactly it is. But either way, you know, the rooms where you need to catch an objective like Boss Rush or Hush, that's usually the rooms where you kind of want to pop your mapping runes or trinkets or cards or things like that. Because, you know, then, of course, not only are you, if you're in a hurry, then you can make a rush for the boss, so you can then, you know, finish it in as fast as possible. But if you have enough time to spare, that allows you to visit the rooms in an optimal order to kind of minimize backtracking. And when you do that, of course, that means that how to put it, when you minimize backtracking, that means that you spend less amount of time on the floor, and then you can actually visit more rooms in exchange for still being fast enough to get to boss rush in time, or Hush, you know, whatever. So that was kind of a convoluted way of saying it, but I hope you're getting what I'm trying to say. The good deals keep on coming, and thankfully, you know, we get a few good items and tears ups, and penetrative tears, and Little Brimstone, and Maw of the Moid, and the Book of Shadows, and all of that just culminates in a run that's just actually pretty strong at this point, you know, because we do have Flight, which gives us that different defensive options. We do have a way to deal constant damage, deal damage to more enemies, and we even have a way to kind of generate hearts via the Maw of the Void. And the run that looked super weak just a few minutes ago is actually looking super strong at this point. And of course, I'm happy to be playing it. It just kind of goes to show just how fickle Isaac can be, how sometimes, you know, even when you're in a super bad situation, things can end up looking a lot better in the end if you just kind of tough it out and go for it. Because we do have, this is the floor I use my Answers rune on, and with a combination of Book of Shadows and the knife we have, I just wanted to make a point. Like the item in the first floor we picked up, Mom's Lipstick, which is an item I usually wouldn't pick up at all because it's just not very good. It's just a range up. But what it also does is contribute to the Mount Transformation. And the Mount Transformation, when you pick up 3 Mom items, it gives you this knife that follows you around, and you can actually use that knife to deal contact damage. And because we do have Book of Shadows, and because we did pick up those Mom items that, you know, are usually useless, we were able to just deal with a few bosses and the combination of Book of Shadows and the knife just so fast that you know, we weren't in any danger of getting hit or maybe slowed down or whatever. So what I'm trying to say is, you know, when you're having a bad run, every item that has any semblance of usefulness is better to take it than to leave it behind. Because, you know, at a point where your run is super bad, it's not about the points anymore. Well, it is, but what's more important is survival, and you just really need to get every advantage you can get to hopefully secure the win, you know. Because, you know, like I said, at this point you kind of have to expect everyone to be struggling, everyone who's playing, and of course if our goal is to rank as high as possible, we can expect our opponents, I guess, or other players that are playing, that they'll be doing similar things that we are doing. But, you know, if someone is not maybe very good at the game and they don't pick up the items that, you know, we picked, like in our case, you know, someone said, okay, Mom's Lipstick is not a good item, I'm not gonna pick it up, then they wouldn't get the Mom Transformation, and that means that they wouldn't have the knife following them, and that means that some boss fights will be infinitely harder for them. And my question is 20 points or 30 points leaving behind better than the ability to sometimes, you know, on the run where it happens, where you do get 3 items, is 30 points for picking up an item not worth the ability to kind of help you out so much on later floors if you just have the right combination of items. And I think in some cases, some daily runs, it's very valid to leave items like those behind because they won't be a help. But in runs where they're really bad runs and you just really want to survive, I think the answer to that is no, it's not worth leaving an item behind, just in hopes of having more points at the end. Because we did have this combination of items that allowed us to deal this amount of damage. We were able to do boss trap rooms, which maybe otherwise we wouldn't be able to do because we wouldn't be fast enough or deal enough damage. And that is kind of a net positive because 30 points for like 300 points that we get for boss trap rooms. So it's just something to think about of the things that need to go into consideration when you're playing the dailies, and how values of items change depending on how good the run is. So yeah, no, I'm kind of rambling now, but I'm just saying, if your run is bad, pick up items that are maybe not as good for the sake of survival, not for the sake of points. And if the run is very good and you don't need to pick up items, then just leave them behind, because points are usually more important at that point than just a few extra damage or a way to see rooms or whatever. Because thankfully we're fighting the Hush and we do have a way to deal with most of his attacks. I mean, we do have penetrative shots, and I can't overstate just how important a way of dealing damage to multiple enemies is, especially against the Hush, because he does have a lot of spawns, which just spawn a ton of flies or a ton of blue guys, I guess. I don't know how they're called. It's just so important to be able to deal damage to them in a way that you can also deal damage to Hush at the same time. Otherwise, it's so easy to get overwhelmed, especially when he mixes his attacks up a lot, like he does, some continuum shots, and then he spawns the enemies, and then he does his tornado, and then he does his splitting shots or whatever. It can get really, really frustrating and hard to dodge very fast. And because we do have Maw of the Void, Little Brimstone, and actual penetrative shots, we're able to deal with them in a much more optimal manner, I guess, than if we didn't have those. So in that sense, the Hush fight was actually pretty easy today, even though it had no right to be as to how this run started, but it turned out well, thankfully. Now we just kind of, because what always happens when you have this Book of Shadows combo, and because we did get a Sacrificial Dagger on our boss rush, which of course deals contact damage to enemies and orbits around us and blocks shots if we ever get them. That's the combo we resort to using for any hard rooms or bosses. But in this case, I just decided, I'm actually gonna show you an Isaac fight, just to show you, kind of tell you how to deal with it, if maybe you don't know. The first two stages are relatively simple, and what you want to do is just stay to the side of him and just dodge up and down to dodge his shots and homing shots. The only danger you have is the second stage where he spawns his angels and the holy light shots, holy beams or whatever. They are the ones that can get you. Usually they won't, but it can happen. And when you deal enough damage to him, he reverts to the third stage, and that's the easiest stage, definitely. The hardest is the second stage, just because he does have a way of dealing you damage that you can't really avoid. But yeah, what you want to do is just stay in the bottom. Like when he teleports away to do his holy beams attack, just go to the nearest bottom corner, whichever one is closer, left or right, and when the beam starts shooting at you, if they're coming from the same side as you are, then just stay in that position, you're not gonna get hit. But if they are coming from the opposite side, then go to the upper side of whichever side you are on. So that means if you're on the bottom right and the beams spawn on the left, then you want to go to the bottom up. So yeah, bottom right, the up right side, yeah. And if you're on the other side, on the left, and the beams come from the right, then you go to the up left side, and that's how you're never gonna get hit against his holy beams attack. I remember at the start, it was kind of hard to figure out a pattern, just kind of how to dodge them, because they seemed so random and erratic. But that is the strategy that I go with, and it works every time. I don't get hit against Isaac very much at all lately. But just overall, this run was actually pretty good for me. I do end up taking a lot of dumb damage a lot of times. But in this case, I actually think I played pretty well. Just in terms of how well I dodged and just how I performed, I guess. Thankfully, the chest had some nice items for us. I think the most important item we got was pinging shears, which first of all gives you flight when you use them for the room, and second of all gives you the little body that follows you around and deals damage. And having flight is so important, I think, because in this room in particular, because Mega Satan spawns a lot of enemies which can put creep on the floor, and just having a way to kind of fly over it and not worry about it is just something that helps you deal with those enemies, I guess, in a much better manner than, of course, if you didn't have it. And of course the body is a nice bonus as well, because it deals quite a significant amount of damage against Satan, Mega Satan, and the spawns he has. The problematic thing about Mega Satan is if you're not strong enough, which meaning if you can't deal enough damage, what ends up happening is that he actually ends up shooting you and spawning enemies at the same time, and that's just something that you don't really want to see. So in that sense, only fight Mega Satan when you know you're really strong. But of course on dailies that only go to Mega Satan, sometimes that's not possible. And when he does his like brimstone attacks and his slam fist attacks or whatever, then things get very hectic and very scary and kind of hard to dodge. But thankfully, because we did manage to pick up Holy Light, and because of our high damage, or high luck, and high damage, I guess, we are able to deal enough damage for us not to be a problem. And I can't believe that a run that was this bad early on actually turned up this well at the end. And the second stage of Mega Satan fight is just bullet hell that is not actually that hard, I think. I think it's much harder to dodge some of the harsh shots than his shots, but of course we do have that sacrificial knife protecting us, and Dry Baby and other defensive items like that. With that said, that actually concludes our run. We would manage to get in around the 60th, which is very surprising to me because I thought this run was gonna go much worse than it did. But yeah, this is actually a pretty good score in my opinion. With that said, I'll thank you for watching, and I hope to see you next time.